The empire is growing and expanding. As cities are conquered and new ones are built, so an endless network of roads unfolds for communication between them. By means of this network, the wealth of the conquered territories is transported around the empire and to Rome. Food, goods and produce are traded and distributed throughout the conquered territories. Thanks to the roads, Roman commerce and prosperity reach a level of development never before seen in any other civilization. It is the year 68 CE. General Sulpicius Galba has taken refuge in Clunia, one of the most important cities in northern Hispania. Galba had conspired to topple the Emperor Nero, but the enterprise had failed. Galba knew what terrible consequences for him would follow, and being terrified of this, he decided to take his own life. But shortly before he would carry out his intended suicide, however, a messenger arrived with surprising and unexpected news. Emperor Nero is dead. Had the news of Nero's death come a little later, Sulpicius Galba would have died. However, the rapid arrival of the news not only avoided the general's death, but also made him emperor. Clunia acquired the status of a Roman colony and was renamed Clunia Sulpicia, by being the place where Sulpicius Galba proclaimed himself emperor. Clunia was located on the Roman road connecting Caesar Augusta with Asturica Augusta, the present-day Spanish cities of Zaragoza and Astorga. The distance by road from Rome to Clunia was in the region of 2,000 kilometers, and the notice of Nero's death arrived for General Galba in only 7 days. This means that the messenger would ride more than 280 kilometers a day for 7 days without resting. Something really impressive. There is not a horse nor a rider who could undertake such a feat. In those days, how could the message arrive in so short a time? We shall visit some places that will give us some clues that perhaps will let us answer this question. We shall begin at a little place in the north of Spain called Liedena, about 40 kilometers from Pamplona. In 1921, here beside the river Erati, some farming works uncovered a buried mosaic. The discovery encouraged various excavations, which in the following decades enabled these remains to be unearthed. They form an architectural complex of almost 2 hectares. Studies reveal a peristyle decorated with mosaics and leading to a large hall. Two separate thermal units were also identified. A large recreation area with a pool. And another patio to the east of the complex surrounded by a large number of rooms. Many experts interpreted the complex as being a villa, a private complex for agricultural purposes, which because of its size and having baths, must have belonged to someone rich and important. And this has been and continues to be the most probable theory about the site. However, there are various indications that point to a different kind of purpose. In the surroundings, there are no obviously important agricultural possibilities. It seems unlikely that this site could survive by cultivating this land. On the other hand, the architecture is very different from the standards used for the majority of Roman villas. Especially surprising is the large number of rooms, their uniformity, and their arrangement. And strangely for a luxury villa, it was located just to the side of the Roman road, where logically private villas, especially luxury villas, were separated by a prudent distance from the road, seeking discretion and security, so avoiding loss of privacy and the inconvenience caused by travelers. The logical explanation for this mystery is that what is called the Roman villa of Leidena was in fact not intended to be for the recreation of a wealthy gentleman or for agricultural purposes. It was a service station for the Roman highway that passed by here. In other words, the equivalent of a modern hotel where travelers could rest and sleep, as well as to wash and relax in the baths. Also to buy goods, as it must have had its own shops or taverns. And obviously and very importantly, to service carriages and replace their horses. The regular arrangement of so many adjoining rooms most likely correspond to stables for carriages and horses. In the secret history of Procopius, a distinguished Byzantine historian of the 6th century, the Roman postal service is mentioned. It explains how the messengers used the finest horses, which were changed frequently at the posts. Places that were additionally used for resting and provisioning, and were distributed along the length of the Roman roads, and always located next to them, so as to be able to offer their services conveniently. Thus, we can be sure without fear of equivocation that the so-called Villa Romana de Leidena is not a Roman villa, but is one of the service stations on the Roman road that joins Pompailo to Caesar Augusta. We are beginning to understand how a message could arrive in Clunia from Rome in only 7 days. However, some further reflection makes us think again. Riding so many kilometers at such speed and without stirrups because the Romans did not use stirrups, a rider would quickly become exhausted and his crotch could suffer serious injuries. So was the rider replaced every few kilometers? And if so, what would happen in case of passenger transport? Would it be a much slower service than mail? To try to answer these questions, we shall travel to the Museum of Arles Antiguo. Here in the Museum of the Arles Antiguo, there are many reliefs from the ancient Roman city of Arelate and other nearby cities. The reliefs and illustrations that have managed to survive provide us with very interesting facts and information about Roman daily life. Here we find a bas-relief where we can see a charioteer driving a racing chariot. It is a biga. The biga was a kind of chariot drawn by two horses. This type of chariot was used in the horse races that took place in the circus, one of the essential buildings for spectacles in every Roman city of a certain size. It is therefore a chariot designed to reach high speeds. Could this type of vehicle have been used for the Roman postal service? We shall go to Rome to reflect on an important revelation. Rome was the heart of the empire, and many roads lead to it. Here is the Via Appia, one of the oldest and most important roads. It connected Rome to Brindisi, one of the most important commercial ports of the time, located on the shores of the Adriatic Sea. Today, the Via Appia offers walkers and cyclists a unique and unforgettable experience, extending for miles and miles. The many remains that can be seen on either side of the road are awe-inspiring and compel the attention. In this section of the Via Appia, we can see these large slabs that were used in its construction. Now let us imagine a biga moving at full speed on paving such as this. It does not take much thought, nor does it require a demonstration to be aware immediately that it would be impossible to maintain any speed in these circumstances. Without any doubt, the chariot would undoubtedly skid or break up, and the horses and travelers would soon end up on the ground. It follows that we're still unable to answer the question that we keep asking ourselves. How could Roman mail couriers maintain high speeds? We are now going to the center of the Iberian Peninsula, where an exceptional fact gives us a great opportunity to answer this question. Here, near the Roman city of Uxama, a modern highway is being built. Its line of travel intersects the Roman road that linked the Roman city of Numantia with Osma. Before this section of the Roman road is lost forever, an excavation has been carried out that gives us the extraordinary opportunity to analyze the construction techniques used on a Roman road. The first thing that we notice are these two large curbs. This tells us that the width of this Roman road was about 6.5 meters. We can see that between the curbs there is a foundation made of large stones. We can clearly see how the lower ones are much larger than those above. And here further on, we shall see a new layer. It is a covering of gravel or aggregate, constituting the last layer that we see. This is the surface layer. This gives us a completely new idea of what a Roman road looked like, because it shows us that the roads were not paved with slabs, as we saw in the Via Appia, but with various layers of smaller stones and gravel placed one above another, and all on an excellent foundation of very big stones. This is certainly the answer to all the questions we have been asking ourselves. The Roman roads, contrary to the popular image that exists, were not paved with flagstones. Paving, however, was used in the city streets to avoid dust or mud and to facilitate cleaning. The same thing happened on the Via Appia at the exit from Rome, and also in many other cities where a paved street went through the city wall, as far as the cemetery, as well as to mausoleums and other funerary monuments. But once past the cemetery, the road always became a functional fine gravel construction. The image of the streets, and in particular of the very famous Appian Way, has created a popular archaeological stereotype that does not correspond to reality, because in fact, Roman roads were not paved with flagstones. We now understand that horses could gallop without damaging their hooves, since the Roman horses were not shod, and that the light chariot could move at high speed without accidents, due to driving over slippery slabs. They rode on roads with excellent surfaces, regular and smooth, with no bumps and well maintained. In addition, with a width sufficient to allow the safe crossing of two vehicles, allowing travel in complete safety and comfort. Thanks to all this information, we can reliably describe the construction technique in great detail and picture how the Roman roads were built. First, a wide area would be deforested in order to clear all vegetation. Then, in the strip where the track had been projected, the topsoil would be removed until a solid base was found. Then on this base, the curbs were placed appropriate to the chosen width for the road. Large stones were placed between the curbs to serve as foundations, and on top of them smaller stone layers all mixed up with fine aggregates to fill the gaps. Finally, the surface layer, a mixture of gravel, sand, and clay, was added. Tipper carts moved along the already compacted layers to deposit the material for the next layer. After tipping out heaps of material, it had to be spread out with planks, watered from barrels, and finally, compacted with rollers. It was a continuous process until the last layer, the surface layer, was finished, which was composed of carefully selected materials of the highest quality. On its surface moved the traffic of carts and draft animals. The final geometry of the road had slightly sloping sides to allow rainwater to be drained outwards and away from the road. And a relevant fact recently discovered: about 20 meters from the road on both sides, ditches were placed to prevent access to the road from unauthorized vehicles. These ditches, the existence of which have only recently been discovered, also increase the visibilities of one's peripheral view, avoiding any surprise from wild animals, and they also made life difficult for possible highway robbers. With what we know now, the view from the air of the construction works being carried out because of the modern highway acquires special meaning and value. The excellent quality of the surfacing and the extraordinary design of the Roman roads allowed very speedy travel with long distances covered daily. And as we saw in Liedena, good facilities existed to serve travelers, so travel and passenger movements probably reached a quite significant level. In some archaeological digs carried out in Bulgaria, metal components came to light, and studying them enabled the reconstruction of the car from which they had belonged. The wonderful result is exhibited in the Cologne Museum. To the ingenuity of its construction must be added the fact that the cabin, the passenger compartment, is suspended from the chassis at 4 points coinciding with the vertical axis of the wheels. A magnificent and effective damping system. In fact, this is a true suspension system. Not only the findings at the digs, but also the bas-reliefs and even paintings have provided us with extraordinary information that has allowed us to discover the great variety of vehicles that were designed for various functions. They also had the raeda with 4 wheels for the transportation of passengers. Some only accommodated 1 or 2 people in addition to the driver. Others had a small roof added for cover from the sun and rain. And the esidum, a chariot with 2 wheels which could move very quickly, the smaller models being driven by the traveller himself. Also the carpentum, used in cities and covered with a canvas top. And the kisium, a very fast car with very high wheels having 9 or 10 spokes. This magistrate's carruca appears in a bas-relief of the Calvert Museum in Avignon, France. It is a very luxurious vehicle that conferred a certain prestige on such officials who needed to travel in carrying out their administrative duties. Also notable were the sleeper chariots, whose remarkable dimensions even allowed passengers to sleep during the trip, also thanks to their excellent suspension system and the uniform surface of Roman roads. Credibility can be given thus to ancient writings that tell us how the Emperor Tiberius traveled for more than 2 days, day and night, to meet his seriously ill brother Drusus, so that he could see him before he died. The trip covered up to 300 kilometers a day, traveling from Ticinum, Pavia, where Tiberius was, to Mogontiacum, Mainz, where Drusus died. The route that Tiberius took obliged him to cross the Alps, as writings confirm. This immediately leads us to a surprising thought. The gradients of these roads, even those that crossed the Alps, had to be gentle enough to allow animals easily to pull heavy and sophisticated vehicles, such as a carruca. This gradient limitation, it was generally advisable not to exceed 6%, represented a tremendous challenge. With his skill and his topographic mastery, the engineer had to combine the orographic with other conditions, trying to strike a balance between the shortest route, when no obstacle was in the way, or the one with the least slope, if the route was to go across a mountain range. But any projected route for a road, no matter how well planned, would inevitably face a multitude of orographic obstacles. To have an idea of what the challenges were and how they were overcome, we're going to take a tour of some specific places in the empire. We will start by visiting a point on the section of the Roman road that linked Astorica Augusta, the current Spanish city of Astorga, and Bracara Augusta, the present Portuguese city of Braga. This is a modern highway linking the Spanish cities of Ponferrada and Orense. Along its route, we find numerous slopes like this one, resulting from road building work. These slopes are formed when a hillside is cut or excavated, in this case to allow the passage of a road. These days, explosives and modern machinery are used to cut the hard rock. However, if we approach this slope and look at it carefully, we see clear pick marks, parallel tool marks that reveal the technique of the excavator. Identical marks to those found in the tunnels and channels carved into the rock to build aqueducts and other Roman works such as mining galleries. This has a simple explanation. This slope was excavated by Roman workers. In the 19th century, modern technicians took advantage of much of the layout of the Roman road that linked the cities of Asturica Augusta and Bracara Augusta to build this modern road, and used many of the rock cuttings that the Romans had made. We can admire the finesse and precision with which this slope was made. The careful geometry and the height reached at some points are surprising. It is astonishing to imagine the effort spent to excavate it with manual tools, and to contemplate the effort that was necessary to excavate the large and numerous cuttings in the rock of this entire route is overwhelming. Very close to the rock cutting that we have seen, the Roman road had to confront the course of the river Bibe. The Romans chose exactly this point at which to cross it, and on it they built this magnificent and solid bridge. A bridge that has lasted more than 2,000 years, and that modern engineers are proved to be used to carry the present road. 2,000 years later, this bridge is not only preserved and standing upright, but also safely supports the continuous passage of heavy modern trucks. The solid construction of Roman bridges is admirable. Despite the ravages of time and the absence of maintenance following the disappearance of the empire that built them, many of them have managed to reach our own times practically intact. Bridges like the one in Alcántara or the one in Salamanca in Spain, that of Chaves in Portugal, that of Vaison-la-Romaine, Boisseron, and Apt in France, and in Italy that of Rimini, Nona, or San Martin are excellent examples. Rivers were unavoidable difficulties in mountainous country, but they were not the only problems, nor the worst. Sometimes the route for the road had to go through narrow defiles or gorges that were impossible to bypass. In the province of Pesaro and Urbino in Italy is La Gola del Forlo, a steep gorge. There, Emperor Vespasian ordered a 38-meter-long tunnel to be opened in order to make way for the Via Flaminia, the Roman road that allowed Rome to link up with Ariminum, Rimini, on the Adriatic. A multitude of tunnels like the Furlo Tunnel were opened to allow Roman roads to pass through unsafe locations or to avoid large detours. All of them are works of refined engineering and of huge constructive effort. Some examples are particularly impressive. For example, the Grotto of Sejanos, west of the Bay of Naples. A monumental and impressive tunnel of 770 meters in length opened in the time of Augustus, and a great tourist attraction today. Or not far away, the famous Neapolitan crypt, a 705-meter tunnel. The Roman road network was made up not only of the long roads that connected cities across the empire, but also a huge number of minor roads, sometimes private, that allowed any important place in the territory to be accessed. To find out what life was like outside the cities and the importance of roads in the way of life of Roman citizens, we shall travel to the modern tourist city of Cambrils near Tarragona, the old Tarraco. Cambrils is a municipality with a mild Mediterranean climate. Its fine beaches, its port and its excellent food, based mainly on the Mediterranean diet and local fishing, attract crowds of tourists, especially in the summer season. In 1980, the urban expansion of Cambrils led to the construction of these residential buildings and holiday homes. When works were carried out in this location in order to build foundations for some of these buildings, these remains were exposed. Investigations revealed that they belonged to what was once a Roman villa, that is to say a country house, a rural house. Meticulous archaeological digs and studies allow us to imagine what it was like. Here there was a semi-underground corridor or gallery that gave access and lighting to a series of adjoining rooms. These rooms are very similar in proportions, so most of them could possibly have been bedrooms. But one of them seems clearly to represent a kitchen, and another to a triclinium. The triclinium was an essential room in houses of a certain quality. In it, banquets were held, at which the owner entertained his guests. In front of the building there would have been a garden open to the beach, and almost certainly a jetty. Here has been found clear evidence that there was a kiln, and fairly certainly a ceramic workshop. Studies indicate that at some time the villa was modified and expanded with a new architectonic wing set at right angles, and with another series of bedrooms that marked out a new interior courtyard. Water and sewer pipes reveal a small thermal complex and a new kitchen with an adjoining latrine. The excavations yielded numerous fragments of paintings and marble plates that indicate definite luxury and comfort in the main building. Something that was emphatically confirmed with the extraordinary discovery of one of the most important sets of bronzes that have been located in recent decades in this part of the empire. For 20 kilometers around Tarragona, numerous remains of Roman villas have been located. Studies show a careful and intelligent division of the territory, with excellent roads connecting the different properties with the main roads. And without doubt, this was happening over most of the empire. Thus, in this way, a Roman villa could trade all kinds of products, both to provide for itself and to supply the rest of the empire. To check the extent of this, we shall travel to the Spanish municipality of Caranque, located in the middle of the Iberian Peninsula. In July 1983, here in a place known as Las Suertes de Abajo, near the municipality of Caranque, about 35 kilometers from Madrid, a plow accidentally dug up various pieces of Roman mosaic during farming work. The discovery led to archaeological digs that exposed various buildings and structures containing enormous and spectacular mosaics in excellent condition. The data suggests that it was a stately Roman villa. Today, the beauty of the Caranque mosaics attract many visitors, thanks to the fact that the site has been opened to the public. The house was accessed through a portico that had 2 turrets at the sides. The house was organized around the peristyle, a central garden space. The peristyle was surrounded by wide corridors paved with beautiful mosaics, and which led to the majority of the rooms of the residence. Organized on a single floor, the house follows the usual model of Roman stately houses and occupied some 1,200 square meters. A funerary building was found near the house, probably to house the owner's sarcophagi, and a torcularium, a construction dedicated to the production of oil and wine. A palatium was also discovered. This palatial residence measured over 2,000 square meters and was a spectacular building for its architecture and decoration, featuring marble on walls and floors, and which is currently still being investigated and assessed. In it, the owner welcomed his visitors and showed off his social and economic status. Altogether, 39 different types of marble from all parts of the empire have been found in this building. Some coming from Egypt, another substantial quantity from Turkey, a great variety from places that are in present-day Greece, 2 from Tunisia and 1 from Germany. Not forgetting the Iberian Peninsula with its ample range of marbles and limestones. Really overwhelming. This demonstrates the power and capabilities of the imperial trade and, of course, its powerful transportation system. But it is not only the variety of the sources of materials or the distance over which they were transported that is overwhelming. These are 2 of the columns of the Palatium that have survived. Each is 4 meters high and is carved from a single piece of stone. Its weight is around 3 tons. They are of Phrygian marble from the imperial quarries located in present-day Turkey. The volume and weight of these pieces must make one reflect on the type of freight cars that allowed their transport over hundreds or even thousands of kilometers by road. One of the most interesting places in the collection of the Langres History Museum in France is the so-called Relief from the Langres Winery. This relief gives us some extraordinary details of a cargo vehicle that is transporting a large wine cask. In the relief, the sturdiness and complexity of the cart can be seen, as well as the harnesses and rigging of the team of draft animals. The excellent degree of detail on the engraving even includes a clever braking system. It worked by activating a single mechanism that transmitted movement to the 2 brake shoes. Thus, the 2 rear wheels braked simultaneously when activated by the driver. In this way, the paintings and engravings discovered in the excavations show us an ingenious and wide variety of transport vehicles designed for every kind of use and commerce. Some were used for the transport of light goods, whose nature and quantity volume could be as required, and others for carrying heavy monolithic items that could not be broken down into smaller loads. Many of these fully loaded vehicles weighed several tons, which translate to more than 1 ton per wheel and a ground pressure of up to 8 kilos per square centimetre, a much higher force than our modern vehicles transmit to modern roads. This made enormous demands on the technique and strength and quality of the materials used to pave the roads, in order that they could withstand loads without deteriorating. This is the reason for the characteristically very long embankments that we find on Roman roads, presenting a height above ground level that often exceeded 1 meter. Let us try to think for a moment about the enormous quantities of stone material that had to be moved to enable these embankments to be raised, and to create the foundations and to provide the different layers of paving. And let us add to this all the effort we have seen in other construction work. Work needed to clear woodland and break through mountains, to cut through the hard rock of hillsides, to build bridges, drill tunnels, and to build roadside service areas to service commerce and travelers. And we should add other elements, less important, but very numerous, such as the construction of ditches to take away rainwater and dispose of it through intersecting drainage channels, or the production, transport and placing of the milestones, stone blocks that were set at the side of the road to mark the distance to the destination city, and possibly with information about the sponsor for the road. We can imagine the enormous difficulty in calculating the costs of so many and such expensive works, and planning the construction implied by it all. And now let us ponder the fact that at the time of maximum imperial expansion, the Roman roads connected 46 provinces, with a total length not easy to quantify, but undoubtedly from the studies that have been carried out, in the order of several 100,000 kilometers. And as if this were not enough, we can also consider the massive degree of maintenance work that would be essential and which had to be carried out continuously and tirelessly. The construction of the Roman road network was undoubtedly one of the great wonders of the ancient world and one of humanity's great achievements. After the disappearance of the empire, Roman roads continued to be used for centuries, but without the necessary regular maintenance, they underwent a process of continuous and steady decay until many of them became unusable. Their functionality was lost. The elegant and sophisticated Roman vehicles gave way to slow and tiresome mule transport. It is worth going to a location in France to understand the extent of what we're explaining. Let us go to Saint-Chamond, a small town in the département de Bouches-du-Rhône. On the outskirts of Saint-Chamond, there is one of the most beautiful and best preserved Roman bridges, the Flavian Bridge. When crossing the bridge, travelers passed under 2 monumental commemorative arches, placed on the abutments on either side of the bridge, and which surprisingly have come down to us in an excellent state of preservation. We have here on the bridge a very curious detail. We are halfway across the bridge, and here we can see the level of the original surface. However, due to the passing of the centuries, the chariots and the carts, as well as to the overall lack of maintenance, we see that the surface has been worn down by up to 1 meter compared to the original level. There are barely 30 centimeters remaining before traffic would have broken through the vaulting of the arch of the bridge. About 2 centuries ago, use of the bridge was discontinued. The constant maintenance that Roman technicians carried out ceased when the empire collapsed. But for more than 1500 years, the road and the bridge continued to be used by all kinds of people, vehicles, animals, and merchandise. Without maintenance, the surface paving layers were lost, having never been replaced, and the wearing down of the vaulting from above caused by beasts of burden, and especially by the iron tires of the cartwheels, was continuous and therefore devastating. A few more years of use would have resulted in the perforation of the vault. This shows the enormous effort that the Romans had to invest in maintenance of its thousands of kilometers of roads and their innumerable bridges. Yet another element to add to the list that makes the story of the network of Roman roads so extraordinary. However, in the hunt for paved roads, scholars have named and referred to many medieval roads and even modern roads as if they were of Roman origin, and the same for bridges from the same era. Thus, today we have a huge list of supposedly Roman roads, where in fact they are not real Roman roads, nor are they true Roman bridges. Also, unfortunately, and as a consequence of this, while we identify these roads and even badly made mule roads as being Roman, thousands of kilometers of genuine and magnificent Roman roads remain unknown. They have been and continue to be destroyed by subdivision of land, by agricultural work, by the construction of modern roads, and even by the urbanization of our towns and cities. But Roman roads are works of such colossal dimensions that despite so much neglect and destruction, it is impossible to completely erase them from the face of the earth. They are covered by forest vegetation that has reclaimed the territory that Roman workers once took away. Some are hidden under modern roads that took advantage, many times unknowingly, of its layout and foundations. Or even already broken up beneath cultivated crops, many kilometers of Roman roads are still there. Unknown, invisible to the indifferent, and only obvious to a few specialists. From the air, changes in color and texture that take place in farmland during certain times of the year reveal tracks and traces that experts can understand and appreciate. Here we see the spectacle from the air. As seen by an expert, the grandeur and magnificence of Roman engineering is clearly visible. Kilometers and kilometers of revealing and spectacular outline traces, where one can see the width of the road and even the area protected by side ditches. Following their trajectories, one can also guess at the existence, under the ground, of unknown archaeological sites that have remained hidden, waiting to be discovered, adjacent to the same road. Establishments that undoubtedly served the road. Mansions. Stations. Post stops. Taverns. The gravel extraction sites can also be appreciated, often close to the road. Separated from the road, traces of villages with their farms can be detected. Sometimes the image is overwhelming. Complete military camps. and even entire cities. We have reached the end of this episode. In it, we have understood that the stereotypical and common image that has been widely shown to us of Roman roads is not correct. We have seen that Roman roads were not paved with slabs on their surface, but were built with a great depth of stone materials and layers of gravel, which allowed travel at high speeds over them, both with light chariots and effectively supporting very heavy cargo vehicles. We have understood the great knowledge of road engineering techniques and the constructive effort that the construction of these colossal engineering works required. To choose the routes, adapt the terrain, spread gravel, drain and channel the waters, build the bridges, and drill through mountains. We have seen how thousands of kilometers of roads were spread over the entire empire, connecting cities with each other, or with towns and their farms, or with other industrial centers. And also the great variety of road vehicles and the efficiency and ingenuity of their design for both cargo and passenger transport. We have learned about the extraordinary Roman postal service and the auxiliary facilities that the Roman road network had to provide commercial services and cater for drivers and passengers. We have understood the allegation of misunderstandings by laymen and even supposed experts about these wonderful engineering works, and how that ignorance is allowing the systematic destruction of this extraordinary legacy. And finally, we have been able to see from the air how thousands of kilometers of Roman roads remain hidden from our eyes, between forests, under roads and farmland, waiting to be discovered. As with roads, Rome brought mining to colossal dimensions and numbers, never before achieved by any other civilization. And again, it did so thanks to its extraordinary engineering that the Romans deployed masterfully in their mining operations. We shall see this in our next episode of Roman Engineering, Mining.